How to make money as a full-time college student and or teenager. This was a fun video I thought about, kind of what I was doing back in those days, and want to share with you some principles and tips that worked for me and also other people that I know. So first off is you have to decide to make the time. A lot of people will use the excuse of, well, how do I find the time? I'm in school, I'm busy. No, sorry, you have the time. It's just a matter of whether you want to make it a priority. And you don't have to, that's okay. But sometimes it may require, if you're serious about getting, a part-time job, or even, somewhat full-time, you're gonna have to make sacrifices in other areas of your life. Not right or wrong, it's just something for you to decide. But a lot of people will kind of front-load the question with, well, how do I find the time? Because they're really just looking to make an excuse and not be honest with themselves that it's I don't want to have to give up partying on a Friday night or have to get up at 6 a.m. every morning. I'm not saying these are fun things. It's for you to decide what are you willing to make a priority in your life, and this is this is a great exercise for you in general because it's something you're going to continually go through. Is what's a priority for me and how am I going to direct my time to invest it in that? And so a couple things. I remember as a teen, I got my first job when I was 15. I got a worker's permit because you had to be 16 or older, and I worked at a Goodyear tire and auto center helping wash the cars and stuff for the oil changes. So there's nothing glamorous, but that's the first thing is when you're starting out, especially at younger, you are going to be doing some grunt work, and instead of whining and complaining about it or being this isn't my passion, this is not what I'm meant for. Well, no, of course it's not what you're meant for. It's just like a high school job. But even if that's the case, what's going to make the difference for you in the long run is how do you treat just this high school job? Are you showing up late? Are you barely not caring about doing a good job because it's just high school, $9 an hour or whatever payment, or are you showing up present, ready to work, doing the best that you can, even though in your mind you're like, man, this isn't really where I'm supposed to be, or I know I can do better than this. That's okay to think that, but you want to make sure that you're delivering value far beyond what you're getting paid. If you do that in general, that's going to help you throughout the rest of your life. So just have a positive attitude, and don't sit there and say, oh, this is beneath me, and then show up and be late and just be a bad employee, because that attitude is going to poison you through the rest of your life. What I found is a good way to make money, especially once I turned 18, was being a server and being a waiter. That's why I did that for multiple years, then also ultimately as a bartender. And for me, that was great because the harder you work, the more money you made, and you're working on salesmanship, you're working with other people. It's just good skills to have as you're going through college, and then once you graduate college. And now a lot of times hey, well, I can't just get a job as a server yet. Either I'm not old enough or they're not really hiring for that position right now. And this is where 80% of guys, it's funny how when they run into that wall, they'll just stop and say, they're not hiring, I can't do it, and they quit. It's come on, man, this is going to happen. So you have to think, okay, what's the next thing I can do? And so for example, I started as a busboy. I got a job as a busboy because I knew if I worked hard there, I would make my way up to be a waiter. And sure enough, after 6 months or so, that's what happened. So you may have to come in a little bit lower and just know that, treat it as a game. Know that, all right, I'm starting a little bit lower than where I wanted, but I know I can get to X in a certain number of months by just busting my butt. It's a good attitude. It's a good challenge for us to do. And same thing on university. Look at are there jobs on campus, specifically on campus, that you can do, things that you're good at. I remember I worked at the gym, obviously, when I started at James Madison University, and I also remember I got the job as a freshman, and before that they'd said nobody ever gets hired here as a freshman. It's not, because everyone wants, it's very competitive, everybody wants to work at this place, so you're not going to get hired, only sophomores and really juniors and seniors. And I took that as a challenge. So that's something you need to do. When people tell you no, take it as a challenge, not a direct assault challenge, but take it as a creative challenge. Okay, most people aren't getting hired, so how can I get hired? Well, automatically it's you have to do things that most people aren't going to do. So show up at the interview, if you get an interview, and don't be dressed like this, right? Dress nice, have a good fit. You've got my good buddies Antonio and Aaron, their channels, to give you all types of advice on that. If you're having trouble landing an interview, well, then you got to be creative. Instead of just sending your resume in or your job application with a stack of 500 others, why don't you do a video and email them a video, or drop by and hand it off on a nice piece of paper, and do your homework beforehand, find out a little bit about who the hiring manager is, and find out about the company or the place, and share how you're excited to help contribute to their mission, right? Somebody who does that, whoa, he's going to stand out way more than somebody else. And that process can apply to an off-campus job too. I remember I worked in college. I had all kinds of jobs. So I worked on because you get a part-time job, you leave, and then you come back and you have to get another one. So you go through this process. So I had the gym, then I worked at a computer lab. So that was a 9 p.m. to midnight job. So that's a job where a lot of people wanted to be partying during the week. I didn't really care at this point. I made the decision I wanted to work more and make money than party. So that's something that you have to think about. I worked at an auto parts store because I had done that before I went to college. So if you have any experience working somewhere, before you went to college, see if there are other similar job types that you can apply in that sense. And then ultimately, I ended up getting a job that I worked like every weekend bartending for weddings. So I'd have to drive an hour and a half away. Now, it wasn't every weekend. It was probably 3 out of the 4 weekends of a month. So I had 1 month where I got to party and hang out. But again, these are the kind of decisions that you have to decide and prioritize on if you want to make more money as a college student. It's not just going to fall into your lap. You have to do the hard work. You have to go out there and, again, get challenged and view it as a challenge and say, okay, how can I creatively overcome this challenge? And then once you have your foot in the door and once you're doing the job, make sure you're showing up and giving it 110%, even if you're getting underpaid, you're doing more than you're supposed to. Like, that's always a good attitude to have, is do more than you get paid to do, because that's basically you investing in your future. So just a couple tips there for you on if you are a full-time college student. And then also, last thing is, I started a little mini business when I was at James Madison or JMU. I started, the JMU Handyman, because I was really good at fixing computers and viruses, and for some reason a lot of guys had viruses on their computers. I wonder why. But I would, they would hire me, I would fix, recover, restore, get their term papers back, etc. So that's another thing. Is there a service or a skill that you're really good at, that you enjoy doing, that you can do for your fellow classmates and fellow students? So it's all about, if I could sum it up, it's about thinking differently and not getting shut down at the first no. Okay, so actually the first thing, again, is deciding to make the time and prioritizing it. And then second is like being creative and putting your best foot forward to show how you can provide value to wherever it is that you want to get a job. And the third is doing it, and doing it above and beyond the call of duty, if you will, for what you're hired for. Those 3 principles will serve you very well as a teenager or college student looking to make more money, and then carry over once you graduate as well. All right, hope you found that helpful. If you did, click the like button and leave a comment down below, and subscribe so these videos come right to you. Thanks.